Farm Survival is a 3-player cooperative game. Each team starts off with a total of 40 resource points that they could allocate to any of these 6 resources. There is Fire Relief, Water, Restoration, Food, Shelter, and Cure. So for example, you could put 6 points on Fire Relief, 6 for Water, 7 for Restoration, 7 for Food, 7 for Shelter, and 7 for Cure. Once you've done that, you have to distribute the 2 resources to each of your teammates. So player 1 could control Fire Relief and Water, player 2 can control Restoration and Food, player 3 can control Shelter and Cure. So before you roll for the natural disaster, each player must decide which of their 2 resources they want to refill. So for example, if I wanted to refill Water, I would say that, and then I would roll a die. I rolled a 1. If I roll a 1 and 2, or 2, that means I get 1 resource refilled. If I roll a 3 or 4, that means I get 2 refilled. And if I roll a 5 or 6, I get 3 refilled. So since I rolled a 1, I would get 1 refilled for Water. Then you would do the same for each of these other 2 players. They would roll, and then they would pick, then they would roll, and then see how much points they get back. Once you do that, one player decides to roll to determine which of the natural disasters will occur. Rolling a 1 will mean that fire is created. Rolling a 2, which would mean that you get a storm. Rolling a 3 is drought. Rolling a 4 is disease. Rolling a 5 is earthquake. And rolling a 6 is pollution. Once you've determined which of the natural disasters you have, you need a specific amount of resources to defeat each of these natural disasters. So for fire, you would need 2 Fire Relief and 1 Water. For storm, you would need 2 Food and 1 Shelter. For drought, you would need 3 Water. For disease, you would need 2 Cures and 1 Food. And for earthquake, you would need 2 Shelters and 1 Fire Relief. And for pollution, you would need 4 Restoration and 1 Cure. So if the players have enough of the resources, let's say for example that we rolled a Fire Relief, which is a 1, that means you would need 2 Fire Reliefs and 1 Water to restore. So in this case, we would subtract 2, and we would subtract 1 for Water. We have enough resources, so that means the natural disaster ends. If we did not have enough resources, then we would fail that natural disaster. And failing 3 natural disasters means that the game automatically ends. But since we succeeded, we would roll again to determine what the next natural disaster would be. Before we do that, we have to choose which of these we want to restore again. And you have to do this at the beginning of each of these rounds. So for example, since we lost 2 Fire Relief, player 1 would decide, okay, I want to refill the Fire Relief, and then they would roll. They rolled a 5, which means they would get 3 points back. So now the other 2 players do that as well, even though that the natural disaster didn't even affect them. And once you do that, one player rolls again to determine the natural disaster. And once again, it's Fire Relief. So since we have enough of the resources, we do the same thing again. We continue on and on until we win a total of 8 rounds of disasters. Once the players manage to do that, they win the game. And as I mentioned before, you could lose if you fail to survive 3 natural disasters. But you could also fail if one player loses completely out of all of their respective resources. So for example, if player 1 lost all of their Fire Relief and all of their Water, the game automatically ends. Or if player 2 lost Restoration and Food, the game automatically ends. Or if player 3 lost Shelter and Cure, the game automatically ends.